Okay, let's check out this thing in Photoshop called the filter gallery. But before going any further, I'm going to revert my mad scientist, my scientist2.psd file. So I'll just hit F12 on my keyboard to essentially remove that add noise filter that you and I had just added to this guy. And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back to the filter menu. And by the way, as a quick aside, notice that the first menu item is the last filter that you and I chose. Just kind of a handy little thing to keep in mind. In any regard, I'm going to head down to Artistic, and then I'm going to choose Paint Daubs. Okay. Now, as soon as I do that, I'm brought into this massive dialog box. This is the filter gallery. And how the filter gallery works is we have our image preview here on the left-hand side. I have all of my available filters in this center column, and then over on the right-hand side, I have my settings, usually my sliders and numeric fields and drop-down menus and things like this on the top right, and then in the bottom right, we have an area that almost looks like layers, and I'll talk about that in just a second. So the idea here is I would come into the filter gallery, and I would start off in the top right corner messing around with my settings, and again, it's all really up to you, whatever you think looks good. Right? So maybe myself, I'll reduce down my brush size. Maybe I'll bring this down to about 6. And maybe I'll drop down my sharpness down to about 10 or 11, something like this. Now, obviously, as I'm making my adjustments here over on the right, you can see the image preview on the far left is updating, right? Neat. It's pretty cool stuff. But what I can do now is I can go and add in additional filters. Check this out. Over in the bottom right corner, what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little icon here, a new effect layer. Go ahead and click on that guy. And now I have 2 instances of Paint Daubs. But I don't want 2 instances of Paint Daubs. I want watercolor on top of Paint Daubs. So I have the topmost layer effect selected here. And then over in the center column, I'm going to go and choose watercolor. Or, I could go through all these different options and go and find a different filter to actually apply in addition to Paint Daubs. So in other words, I can actually stack filters one on top of another. So I'm going to click on watercolor here. Now I have this watercolor effect, and I can come into the top right and start messing around. Brush detail, shadow intensity, texture, and so on. And what's really cool is I have tons of options here. I can go and add in more effects if I want. I can turn off Paint Daubs, or I could turn off watercolor, or I could go, watercolor, I don't know what I was thinking. Select that guy, hit the trash can down at the bottom, get rid of them, and then start all over again with a new layer effect. And then what the heck, maybe I would go into sketch and then say, for example, chalk and charcoal. I mean, you can really go bananas here, right? But don't forget, now that I'm done messing around with my filter and I'm done messing around with my filter gallery and I click on OK, this is a permanent change inside my photo, which of course you and I both know I am not for, right? So I want to show you now how to go about working with your filters and your effects in a non-destructive, fully editable way.